Hello, Begoña, and thank you for joining to this interview.
Mhm.
So, I will ask you some question about your experience in Gestalt.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Yes.
first of all, can you tell about yourself, general information? Where are you from? Where I live right now? How old are you?
Yes. I'm 43 years old. I'm from Chile. I live in Chile right now in Santiago.
Mhm.
I'm a clinical psychologist and psychotherapist. And I've been working both in public and private practice for nearly 20 years now.
Mhm. Mhm. So, Um, could you tell how did you become a Gestalt therapist, and how did you become a trainer of the institute?
Okay. Um, uh, I had I have completed four comprehensive Gestalt programs till this day. I've been studying for the last 14 or 15 years. First, I started studying psychodrama, and then I started studying Gestalt. Uh, to become a Gestalt therapist, I went through a 3-year program in the Chilean Gestalt Institute. It's a very small institute here,
Mhm.
um, and one of a kind. You don't have more options.
So it's only
Um,
one Gestalt institute in Chile.
One of that kind. We have the other kind that it's um, like more Californian or perhaps last year's study with Enneagram and a lot of consciousness expansion work, but the kind of Gestalt like rooted in phenomenology and existentialism is the only one of its kind. Yes.
Okay, and I want to clarify that another institutes also name themselves Gestalt institutes, or it's
Yes.
another. Uh,
Yes.
and
They they call themselves alive Gestalt.
live Gestalt. And how
Yes.
many, so, of every kind of Gestalt institute in Chile? What was this number about?
A number of students.
Of Gestalt institutes of
Ah,
Chile
I think there are those two
too.
only. Yes.
Ah,
Yes.
I see.
There are some small groups that bring people to train other people.
Hmm.
I have some colleagues that have formed a group that it's called Phenomenological and Existential Center of Studies. And it's a really small group of people that bring online trainers like Chimo Tárrega or another
Hmm.
Gestaltist to give lectures here online,
Hmm. Hmm.
mostly.
Hmm.
But
And
they do not train people by themselves. They
uh-huh,
only bring people.
uh-huh, yeah, I see. And how many Gestalt therapists in Chile? How do you think? Is it big amount or small amount?
No, it's small amount. Chile is a really small country,
Mhm.
but I think um, it's not common to say I go to a Gestalt therapist.
Mm. Mhm.
People tend to go to psychoanalysts or a
Mhm.
cognitive work or DBT. Do you say
CBT.
that? DBT,
Mhm.
yes, DBT or systemic. It's
Mhm.
very popular here. But if you say Gestalt, it's like uh,
So
an
generally,
uncommon thing.
people don't know about Gestalt a lot. Yeah, it's
Yes,
quite
yes,
exotic psychotherapy.
yes,
Uh-huh.
yes,
So,
yes.
and it's not many Gestalt therapists in the country at all, right?
No, no.
Mm-hmm.
So I completed a 3-year in-person program in that institute. Then I went through a hybrid program with, it started in person here. It was from the Italian Gestalt Institute, the HCC, with Margarita Spagnolo and Carmen Vasquez. They came here at first, But then the pandemic started,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to go online for the other 3 years. So I completed that. That was psychotherapy in Gestalt from a perspective, from a field perspective, and it it bring together participants from Chile, Argentina, Peru,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then I had completed two programs with Ruela Frank, first as a practitioner, then as a trainer and supervisor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also I have attended numerous workshops and classes,
Mm-hmm.
both here and
So
internationally.
quite rich experience as a student of Gestalt therapy, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how can you describe why did you choose particularly your institute?
hmm Um, well, as I told you, the community here, the Gestalt community, is quite small, and the institute that I attended is unique in its class.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because the other one blends Gestalt with Enneagram and other esoteric approaches,
Mm-hmm.
with didn't align with my own interests.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say that my journey with this institute began during my undergrad studies in psychology.
Mm-hmm.
I was in university, and I discovered the work of Adriana Schnake, that it's the first Chilean Gestaltist. She was a psychiatrist, and she was pioneering since the 70s with Gestalt here in Chile.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Her writings like resonated deeply with me.
Mm-hmm.
I found a sense of belonging when I first read that information. So the first time I had an opportunity to come to her institute, she was alive then. She passed away last year,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
2024. Um, I seized immediately. I took it immediately, the chance to
Mm-hmm.
participate in her institute, and
Mm-hmm.
that was my first training. Adriana, well, as I said, she passed away in 2024, and she was a profoundly inspirational woman. She was truly ahead of her time, always. So it was really a privilege to learn Gestalt from her. Even though by the time I enrolled the institute, she was an old woman and partially blind, so she taught there occasionally, but she trained her people, her team, to adopt her style, and that was direct, super alive, super connected, but also tender and supportive
Mm-hmm.
in engaging with others. And that emphasis in closeness or intimacy um, within the I-Thou encounter, what was beautiful and novel and new for
Mm-hmm.
me,
Mm-hmm.
very
Mm-hmm.
new for me.
Mhm, very interesting. And if we speaking about your like first institute, your Chile institute, what
Mhm.
specific features of training in your institute, what values or uniqueness of it, maybe it compare about the story of style of your teacher, or I don't know, maybe something else.
Yeah, I can tell you maybe something of how it's structured,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
and
great.
also the features. Um, I think it was a rich experiential work, plus a lot of supervision and supervised practice. Um, we had we met monthly for intensive 3-day sessions for the
Hmm.
3 years, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday,
Once per month,
once per month.
3 day
Yes,
sessions, 3 years, 3 years. It's about 103 day sessions. Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay.
Um, and they started addressing emergent group dynamics. Um, then on Saturday, we mostly got lectures on specific and theoretical issues of Gestalt and therapy demonstrations. And then in the last part of Saturday and most of Sunday, extensive experiential practice, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of practice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to complete the program, we needed to fulfill several requirements that was a minimum of 40 hours of supervision with some um, accredited, you say accredited? Well,
Yeah,
some,
accredited therapist.
yes,
I'm
accredited
sorry, accredited where?
supervisor. Huh?
Accredited where in what organization?
Yes, um, accredited by the Chilean Organization of Psychologists and Supervisors.
Uh-huh. Okay. So it's
Um,
not specific Gestalt therapist
no,
supervisor, but generally.
yes,
Right.
they recommended to do it in Gestalt, but you have to have accredited supervision,
Mm-hmm.
at least 40 hours, at least 40 hours of individual psychotherapy or 100 hours of group psychotherapy or a combination of both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Do you
Beside
have,
all the work we did in the program, but
uh-huh.
this was out of the program.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Beside.
Do you have
Mhm.
some requirements? I'm telling not about this 3 days meeting requirements
Yes.
like to go to conference or to intensive or something like that.
Yes. And we had to go to not to conferences, but Adriana at that time lived in the south of Chile. I'm in the center, and the classes were in the center, and we were required to go to see her to a retreat, like
Mm-hmm.
for a 4 day retreat with her
Mm-hmm.
in the south, in an island where she lived at
Mm-hmm.
the time.
It
And
was
there
you.
was mostly experiential work there.
Uh-huh. 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 Okay.
Transformative work.
Mm-hmm.
And to graduate, we had to present a thesis and complete an oral examination that included a case presentation.
Mm-hmm. So you
Mhm.
need to write the case and present this case, yeah, in a exam.
That was for the exam, but on the side, I presented a theoretical thesis. My
Mm-hmm.
thesis was a Gestalt understanding of schizophrenia, for example.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So you present this case on exam or before exam?
The case was in the exam, in the oral examination.
Uh-huh. So,
I presented a case for graduating,
uh-huh.
and beside that, I've already completed my thesis about a theoretical one of, in my case, schizophrenia and Gestalt.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. And how many training programs per year or at all your institute lead?
That institute, I think they had one diploma, like a short program, and one a 3 year program at the same time. They go
Mm-hmm.
in parallel.
Mm-hmm.
People training for short diplomas and people training to become a Gestalt
Mm-hmm.
therapist.
So it's two groups
Yes,
per
I
year
don't know
or
at the time if they work like this right now because I went there like 10
uh,
years ago, 14
uh-huh.
years ago, but I think it's something like this.
Uh-huh. It's
And they sometimes presents workshops on body work or arts work or
mhm.
something like this.
And how many people were in a group, in your group, for example?
Like 32, 33 people.
Oh, 32, 33 people.
Yeah.
It's quite big amount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh. And after learning, you had a diploma of Gestalt therapist, or how it called? How exactly it called?
The institute at that time had a strong relationship with one university. So if you completed the thesis beside the oral examination, you could apply for a master's degrees. So I
Mm,
have a university title diploma with that says Gestalt a masters in Gestalt psychotherapy, and I have one diploma from the institute like accredited Gestalt psychotherapist.
mhm. Very interesting. So you have both the same, yeah, and
Yes.
government like diploma and
Hmm.
Gestalt diploma. Cool. And what about supervision? Do your institute has some supervision training or program, or how
No,
you can?
they do not. Do not provide supervision programs for
Mhm,
people to train as supervisors. They don't.
mhm, uh-huh.
That's why people start studying abroad,
Yeah, yeah. So
like
are
with
you a
Margarita,
supervisor?
with Ruela.
Uh-huh.
If you want to become a teacher, because actual teachers in that institute are Adriana's daughters, Adriana's son-in-law. They're their family. They learn
Oh,
from her. They became teacher because of family. But
yeah,
the
yeah.
other people studies abroad.
And how many teachers in that institute?
They rotate, but they have a strong core of like 8 people, I think.
Mhm. Okay. So,
Um, I uh, I thought you asked me before about limitations and advantages of that program.
yeah,
Maybe I
yeah,
can
yeah.
do that.
Hmm.
Um, I think, and I'm very grateful because that program excels at profoundly increasing the therapist's self-awareness. Um, I, uh, I was deeply touched and moved several times during that 3 years. Um,
Hmm.
and they also are real good at transforming theoretical knowledge into lived practice.
Mm.
Um, and they
Hmm.
also foster a strong community among trainees during the program. We
Hmm.
were together a lot in a very rich way.
Hmm.
Um, on the other hand, the limitations of that program in specific, um, I think they lie in the theoretical depth. Um, some lectures were kind of superficial and lacked of deep theoretical grounding, I think.
Hmm.
Um, and various approaches of Gestalt were presented without adequate distinction or
Hmm.
critical analysis. Like,
Hmm.
this is this and this is that. Everything was like blend in.
Hmm.
So I could have preferred a more guided, in-depth immersion to the theoretical foundations.
Hmm.
And um, it was a very light approach of theoretical. If you read, it's okay. If you don't read, it's okay too. We have to practice and live and be fully
Hmm.
honest and open. But the theoretical was, I think, a little bit shallow at times. Um,
Hmm.
and it was not required for the trainees.
Yeah, I see.
As I present you some theory, but you don't have to take it all or read it or go
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
dive in.
Hmm. Hmm.
So a lot of experience, but little practice. As a
And
little theory, sorry, little
hmm.
study. Mm.
Hmm. And little bit more questions about your experience and about your institute. Um, and what did you saw some ethical question which can be arised or arised most frequently during your training, or and also did you had like topic of ethical issues, and what ethical code
Mm.
do you support of Gestalt therapy?
Mhm, mhm. Um, yeah, I could say that the typical difficulties are in adopting a phenomenological approach. and uh, this comes foreground um, when it's not deeply rooted in theory. People has to practice something they do not they cannot grasp into because they do
Mhm.
not have where to grasp
Mhm.
from.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it's like learning a new language, embracing the not knowing and being with. So it's a significant challenge for trainees to keep a smart and aware blindness in the therapeutical field, and to truly resonate what with the emergent questions or topics of the field, um, and not tempting to put our previous knowledge and diagnosis and all that.
Mhm.
Um, I think that mastering that issues takes longer than a typical 3-year training program. Maybe it's a
Mhm.
lifetime challenge.
Mhm.
Um, and also confronting the limitations of phenomenology and therapy in general can be frustrating for some. Many of our people of trainees um, uh, uh, come from a really vulnerable place of working. So our work it's part psychotherapy, part social assistance, and it's really hard sometimes to stay in just phenomenology, right? We have a lot to address, and that's challenging. Um, Even more challenging when you are not theoretically rooted.
Mhm.
Um, and also, I think this is super challenging, but also I think necessary to happen is that Gestalt training has a constant potential of being triggering for some people
Mhm.
because it's a lot of practice, a lot of experience or experiential work. So people were constantly triggered due to the deep and constant practice and engagement that it requires.
Mhm.
Um, and this, I think, cannot always be well supported by the teachers for different
Mhm.
reasons. They're not available, there's too much people, there are some other things happening, and or people tend to trust, or teachers tend to trust too much in self-regulation, uh,
Mhm.
and that rest and that diminished support
Mhm.
for someone.
Mhm.
I think
I
that's
see.
that's challenging in that experience. Um, and mm, this is maybe personal, but I think the ethical questions that arise most frequently during training, in this training and in other trainings, um, I think the dilemma arises in addressing political or religious or historical disparities during a session, whether you are talking about a patient therapist session or a training session between trainers and a group. I think um, sometimes trainers try to deflect those issues by staying right here, right what's happening here and the here and
Mhm.
now. But there are also pressures in the field
Mhm.
that I think are not fully covered in the trainings.
What
Uh,
exactly trainers avoiding in this situation?
Sorry, can you repeat the
What
question?
exactly trainers avoiding in this situation? You mean what?
What did exactly avoid it
Yeah.
in this
What
situation?
what figure avoided?
Mm, I think they um, they rush to promote a conciliation or understanding or peace
Mm,
before conflict.
yeah, I see.
You can
So,
skip things, and we're sending thoughts of and prayers for peace, but we're not
mhm,
addressing, even though
mhm,
we are in an existential approach where world it's shaping me and I'm shaping the world. But
mhm,
if the if the world is in conflict and we have disparities in opinion, or I think they tend to avoid that path.
the conflict. Mm,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
that kind of conflict,
Uh-huh.
political, religious, historical. I think it's understandable. It's a hard one,
Hmm.
and we are psychotherapists. We are not social workers. We are not anthropologists. We are not sociologists. But either way, we are in an approach that takes the world in.
Hmm.
Uh,
So it's affects this avoiding, yeah?
yes, and it's always there, already
Hmm.
there. And I think
Hmm.
it's
Okay.
not enough to say I stand for peace. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
necessary, but it's not enough.
Yeah. Thank you. And my maybe favorite questions. Who is Gestalt therapist and how would you define this role?
Hmm. I think a Gestalt therapist is an explorer of contact, someone who is gracefully and vividly willing to navigate in their uncertainty. Yeah, to put a voice um, to what emerges in the here and now of being with another one. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, a Gestalt therapist is someone who isn't focused on fixing or modifying a client, but rather trying to understand um, the being in the world of the other,
Hmm.
and trying to understand mostly what are the psychological functions of those elements that seem to interfere with a creative or joyful life.
Hmm.
Um, I think this require that the therapist have undertaken some profound self-research, um, both theoretically and experientially, in a proper balance. Um, and I think it requires a training in phenomenology and existentialism, bodily knowing, bodily wisdom, ethics, and aesthetics of
Hmm.
contact.
Hmm.
Um, and as I like to say to my students, different from other approaches, our guideline questions are always rooted in how, not in why.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you for your beautiful definition. How is the professional identity of Gestalt therapist formed through the training process? And when can we say that it's already formed?
Mm. Um, I don't have a clear sense of how professional identities form within the training, which might be a weakness of the program or not. I'm not sure, but I can identify maybe some specific qualities that I think I appreciate that are intentionally shaped in the developing therapist.
Mhm.
I think one is closeness. Uh, I remember within that first program being aware of how my teachers weren't afraid of closeness, differentially different from which I have seen before in university in psychology. Um, Gestalt trainers weren't afraid um, of forming deep and meaningful connections. Um, and that brings a clear sense of how important is intimacy um, in the sense of developing a deep and profound and sensitive presence with the other, to the other, for the other, about the other, and fostering that presence comes from the other part, from the part of the client too.
Mhm.
Um, and being with rather than trying to change, emphasizing presence and acceptance over intervention and modification.
Mhm.
Um, I think that qualities were over the table all the time. That were
Mhm.
explicit, explicitly put it out there
Mhm.
during the
Mhm.
3 years.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you. And now you are trainer of Gestalt therapy, yeah?
I'm a trainer in two universities for psychiatrists and for psychologists in both postgraduate programs.
Mhm.
And I teach Gestalt there, but I do not teach in a Gestalt institute.
Uh-huh.
I teach from a Gestalt approach. I supervise from a Gestalt approach
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
both situations and privately, but I do not teach in the Gestalt Institute.
Mhm. So you are not teaching for Gestalt institutes, but you're teaching
Mhm.
for your government education, yeah, for your institute's
Mhm. Yes.
program. And what maybe uh, biggest challenges you personally face as a trainer for your students?
Um, um, a key challenge I face in supervision is the is resisting the urge, my own urge, to overprotect my students, by immediately trying to solve their dilemmas with their own clients
Mhm.
uh, before fully understanding how the contact situation is unfolding. Um, I have to resist that, and that's a big challenge. And similarly, maybe I also try to resist the temptation to impose or overshare or um, over a show my own therapeutic style,
Mhm.
um, instead of supporting the trainees' unique meaning making process as they develop their own approach.
Mhm.
I think that are both challenges which I face as a trainer,
Mhm.
like not
How?
rushing into
Mhm.
solutions and stay. I think this is a field issue. I think they're pretty anxious when they're starting. So uh, it's to resist what I think they are demanding for. Like,
Mhm.
give me the answer. What's happening here? When I'm stuck, what's happening with me, with the other? And uh, I tend to or I have to say myself, let's be here for a while. Let's sit
Mhm.
here. Let's
Mhm.
find a chair. Let's
Mhm.
find ourselves first
Mhm.
uh, to de-escalate the speed of.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe it's different from usual study process in universities.
Yes,
This approach, I mean, yeah, well, you're
yes,
not giving
yes,
answer. Mhm.
yes.
Okay, and thank you for your honest interview and honest answering questions. It was very interesting to know better situation and your experience in Chile. And is there anything else you want to add to our conversation, or maybe something important which I didn't ask?
Um, maybe maybe thank you for this opportunity, but I think that makes me think about the present and the future of Gestalt. You know, Chile is like an island, and even though the pandemic took us a lot for all of us worldwide, it also um, boosted some possibilities in connection, in remote connection, much like this very interview we're having right now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, true.
Um, so I'm hopeful and happy because um, I think this shifting in the overconnection brings us the possibility and laid the groundwork for reframing and shaping Gestalt as is it now in this current world, even with the incredible complexity we're facing today. We have an unprecedented opportunities for connection. Um, and I somehow trust that this will bring us greater resonance and collaboration possibilities for the sake of Gestalt continued growth.
Mhm.
Um, to think with others that are so different in different timetables, in different places, but we can be here and now together,
Mhm.
thinking about and
Mhm.
speaking about. I
Mhm.
think that's beautiful and have so
Yeah.
many possibilities at the same time.
Mhm. So one of these possibilities, as you say, is here and now. We can
Yes.
you can share your experience for another part of the planet.
Hmm.
Thank you very much again, and it was
You.
pleasure to speak with you.
Hmm. It's a pleasure for me too.